Open.
Outspoken.
It's ophthalmology off the grid.
An honest look at controversial topics in the field. I'm Blake Williamson.
I'm Gary Wörtz.
Gary and I are very excited to do Ophthalmology Off the Grid. Who here listens to Ophthalmology Off the Grid podcast? All right, cool. This year, we wanted to do something super special with a guy who I've admired from afar. I don't know him as much as I'd like to, and we're going to get to know him today.
Yeah, this is, and Shannon, if you want to just go ahead and come on up, this is a round of applause for Dr. Shannon Wong, Austin I.
Support for this podcast comes from Bryn Mawr Communications. BMC produces a number of informative podcast series spanning a variety of topics in ophthalmology. Discover a new show at itube.net/podcasts.
So Shannon, I think we first started communicating back in the AS Series chat board days, the good old bad old days of the AS Series chat board. You're here in Austin. Your partner John, you both were pretty active on that. And for those of you who don't know, like before social media and before Instagram and Twitter, there was this thing called the ASCRS chat board. It went away a few years ago, but for a long time it was a nice community where people got to share cases, and that's really where I got sort of connected with Bill Trattler. And once you know Bill Trattler, everything else, you know everybody else very quickly. But Shannon, you were always a voice of reason. You always had great advice about cases. You gave me some good advice about patients over the years. And so we wanted to, when Blake and I were talking about Ophthalmology Off the Grid Live, we thought who better than Austin's favorite son, Shannon Wong. So with that, let's get this thing started. So Shannon, just introduce yourself a little bit. Maybe give us a little bit of a background on your practice, about your practice philosophy, maybe even how you got started in ophthalmology, if you don't mind.
Okay, so I'm an ophthalmologist in private practice here in Austin. We do a lot of cataract and refractive surgery, and I'm 55 years old, so I'm older than a lot of your parents. I started in ophthalmology here in 1997. I've been with the same practice. I joined a practice that my dad started in 1969, and my dad worked as an ophthalmologist until he's age 80. He retired in 2019.
He literally just retired just a few years ago.
2019.
Unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
What were the early days like whenever you were here? Austin was probably a different place, 50 years ago. Talk about you growing up here. Talk about what was your house like in terms of if you have an ophthalmology father. I have an ophthalmology dad, so I kind of know what that's like. Was it always going to be medicine? Was it always going to be ophthalmology? Take us back to that time.
So Austin at the time, this was 1970s. There was about 250,000 people. There were 3 ophthalmologists in town, and my dad was one of them. You grow up, and Blake, I'm sure you know the ropes, but ophthalmologists are generally happy people. And we would go around town, and people would recognize my dad and say hello, and they seemed pretty genuinely happy to see him. So you go through this path of, well, where am I going to go to college? Can I do well in college? Can I make the grades? Can I even get into medical school? And then you climb that mountain, then you go through medical school. Can I make the grades? Can I even get into a residency program? And then you do that, and then you come out and practice, and you start climbing mountain after mountain, and it really never ends.
So, there's a lot of people here, and I have to just say, this has been such a fantastic group of people. I have met so many wonderful young medical students, residents, early career physicians. So as you look out over this, group of future ophthalmologists and leaders, you navigated each one of those milestones, and I'm sure there were challenges along the way. What are some of the challenges that you faced during your journey of not knowing if you're going to get into medical school, not knowing if you're going to get a residency, that maybe would resonate with some of the people who are, aspirational ophthalmologists out here?
I mean, everybody knows you have to do well academically. That's what I call academic currency to get to the next level, because numbers do matter. But if I had to go back, what I would learn more about is leadership of other human beings, how to evolve to be the best possible human you can be by studying other people, your professors, your boss, your academic attendings if you're in medicine, and kind of acquire the great qualities, character attributes that these people have. And then you're also going to meet the other end of the spectrum of people who are great role models of what you shouldn't do, and learn from those people too.
Yeah, the counter examples and the examples. I know leadership is a key area that we share, in terms of our interests, and we both have an author that we both like, Jocko Willink. I know you've had the opportunity to actually go and sort of study under him at some conferences, and I know you're a big fan of his philosophy, but will you explain your leadership philosophy? I mean, as a leader in ophthalmology, I mean, you run a practice, you're taking care of yourself, your family, your kids, your practice, your partners, each ring. Will you explain a little bit about your leadership philosophy and maybe even in the context of how Jocko Willink and extreme ownership has influenced some of those ideas?
It's about checking your ego always. So approach everything from a humility standpoint. Try to make everybody around you better. Put others before yourself. And that's part of just being a considerate human being. So every day I realize that I can only be as productive as the team around me. So I think one thing that I don't hear in medicine is the creation of teams in medicine that act as force multipliers to make the healthcare entity that each of you will be more impactful over your life. So if you can learn to work with other people, communicate well with them, understand them, set a good example for them, but it's a lot of like self-reflection always, and then thinking about the needs of others.
Yeah, I think that one fun thing about this season of Off the Grid, if those of you have been following along, is it's been all about business. How do you grow your business? How do you grow your brand? And I can't think of a better example of you when we're talking about that. But I bet you it wasn't always like that. I'm curious if you have a mistake or a bad decision that business-wise that you've made, and perhaps something that you did really good that you're proud of. What's a great decision that you made that you're happy about, and what's a mistake that you wish you could take back?
Yeah, I've made so many mistakes. I would say the first 15 years of my career were kind of a mistake.
This is
Expand on that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've learned a lot. I mean, I joined my dad, and he had his style and his philosophy, and I grew up with my parents, and they had a lot of positive attributes, but I didn't realize how much wasted potential I had. So I thought of I was very much I'm a self-sufficient person. I can do everything myself. I don't need the help of others. And I had to look beyond that, get over myself, and learn that there were certain moments where I would visit another practitioner, another ophthalmologist who was just crushing it, doing so much more. They were so much more productive than I was. And I just analyzed it, and I go, oh, it's because he's not doing everything himself. He's actually created a team around him that allows him to be more efficient. But in order to create a team around you, you have to understand how businesses are run and how people operate, and develop an organizational chart and define the roles and responsibilities that you need to have in your organization to succeed. And then that's a whole nother art of hiring, recruiting talented people, compensating them well to retain them, and then growing the business so they don't feel like their lives are stagnant, because everybody wants to grow.
You gave us that timestamp of 15 years. So what changed, or what's a great decision? What's one of the best business decisions that you've made? How are you able to start to shape your practice after the first 15?
I mean, we had a good foundation. We had an ASC. a 1 OR ASC, which is huge. If you're in cataract refractive, or even if, in my opinion, you're in any ophthalmology space, having an ASC is crucial. It pretty much doubles your productivity. I learned that I need to form a team around me. And then we also, we used to do our own marketing, and we've tried every marketing media. I mean, we've done print media, magazines, newspaper, billboards, radio. But then, just like somebody was talking, I think it was you guys were talking about earlier, you hire people. It was Rob Melendez. You hire consultants. So I realized, we got a femtosecond laser for cataract surgery in 2012, and we were early adopters of this type of stuff. And we used to do all our marketing kind of homegrown. And then I looked for a marketing person back in that era, 2012, and there were certain companies who did marketing, but then they would market for like Southwest Airlines and then a local shoe company, and then they would incorporate healthcare. But I found a guy who does marketing not for just medicine, they do marketing for cataract refractive surgery. And I go, oh. And I looked at their stuff and I go, oh, I could never do what they do because that's just so next level. And so that opened the door to how to market.
I think that's a really interesting thing. And as ophthalmologists, medical students, residents, it's a double-edged sword of being a capable person who's willing to take on challenges, because you do start thinking, I can probably do all this myself and I can do it better than anybody else can. But like also Dr. Dell said earlier today, you run out of time. And, time is going to be your most precious commodity. So how do we, how did you make that decision? Was it a burnout at 15 years? Were you starting to feel burned out? Were you starting to feel like I've got more to give, but there's a block here? Because I think a lot of times, people feel trapped in a certain area and they're blocked. Like, what was the thing that made you sort of just like break through that block of I've got to do it all myself and actually take the risk and change?
As a resident, as a medical student, you do the history, physical review of systems, et cetera. As a resident in ophthalmology, you do a comprehensive 8-point eye exam, et cetera. You do everything. And that's how I trained, and that's how I practiced for at least the first decade. Yeah, we did a lot of LASIK when I was starting out, so that was our bread and butter. I did very low volume cataract surgery. But I realized the most productive practices, the best use of an ophthalmologist's time financially is doing cataract refractive surgery. So then when I saw that, I go, well, I only have one life. Do I still want to keep refracting? Do I still want to do all these things that I was doing, contact lens fitting, et cetera? I go, no, I really can be most productive in the operating room. So I formed a team around me. We hired optometrists. We hired a lot of technicians. We enabled our technicians to do a lot. They're basically physician extenders in our practice. So yeah, now I don't see regular eye exams. I don't want to see emergencies. I don't follow glaucoma patients. I don't see diabetic routine eye exams. My only patients I see, and we screen these on the front end, are patients who want surgery, or we've done surgery on them and we're managing them postoperatively because they're not quite happy. So it's a very narrowly focused use of my time, but it's the single most productive use of my time as an ophthalmologist.
Talk about your family a little bit more. So those of you who've seen some of the slides, I think it was Jane from earlier, the ophthalmology department here is named after the Wong family. The philanthropy that y'all have done, the success that your family has achieved, not in ophthalmology, of course ophthalmology, but other things, real estate, other things. How did that come along, and how involved are you in philanthropy locally? Talk a little bit about that.
I remember I was at a fundraising event with, he's a professional athlete, and this was like 15 years ago, and he said, the one thing I regret is I didn't start my philanthropy earlier, and I remember that. And then we all grow up and we go to college and we see things that are named after people, and then we go to medical school and you see that too. And as as a younger ophthalmologist, I was just grinding away, trying to pay off my house, get a car, all those things. But if you keep applying a lot of discipline, a lot of hard work, you'll build a financial base if you can think like a business person. My dad basically did that all his career, and he used a lot of his business sense to invest in real estate. And so he would continue to invest in real estate. I was doing well in the business, and so I started investing as well. And at a certain point, I remember they were going to open a medical school here at the University of Texas at Austin. And I said to my dad, I said, you've got enough stuff. I'm going to have enough stuff. Why don't we donate to the medical school to create an ophthalmology department? Because that would be pretty cool. And so basically that's what we decided to do. And I'm sure we'll continue to do that over the course of my life, and that's what we do. So we've created an ophthalmology department. We have 3 residents, and we've matched our second group of 3 residents. So our first group of residents is in their first PGY1 year. We have 5 faculty that are full-time. My priority is my private practice, but I do work kind of behind the scenes with our ophthalmology department.
One other thing that I've enjoyed as I've gotten to know you and have sort of followed you in your career is some of your educational videos that you've made on YouTube. I don't know this. I think that they're probably among the most popular videos for patients to watch. Blake and I do a lot of things for our colleagues and educating each other, but you've really taken this more towards patients, and I think it's very unique. Can you just talk a little bit about what led you to go to YouTube and make these videos that are more patient-facing? And can you talk about how that's helped your practice and what kind of reception you've gotten from patients who've come in maybe because they've seen your YouTube videos?
Yeah, it was kind of by accident. So it was around 2010. I remember I was watching Uday Devgan, and he was creating videos around that time. And I sent him an email. I said, how do you do that? And he kind of explained it a little bit. And my kids at that time were younger, and they were watching a lot of YouTube. And so I thought, well, maybe I can create some videos, some vlogs. There's a YouTuber named Casey Neistat, and they really liked him. So I go, well, maybe I'll create some videos, but I'll do it in a world where other people aren't making videos about eye surgery. I'll make them about eye surgery. And then it morphed into, well, I'll do it to educate our patients. And then I'll do it to educate our staff. And then I went down this rabbit hole of, hey, this is kind of like creative writing. So I would write the script, and it incorporates technology. I would get better and better video cameras, and then I learned it's about audio. Audio is as important as video when you create a video. And then it's production quality, and somehow the YouTube algorithm will eventually recognize it, and it's taken on a life of its own. It's really, I do it because I enjoy it. I don't do it, I do it for education. And if anybody can benefit from it, I think that's cool. I'm not the type of guy that goes like and subscribe. It doesn't really matter to me.
Smash that like button.
But it has created an interesting effect in that I literally see people from all over the world coming to see me every day because they said, I saw you on YouTube. And I don't usually dig into it, but I don't even know what resonated with them. I don't understand it.
Well, I think it's the content itself. I mean, it's so topical. I remember when the Symphony lens was launched, it was just massive that this surgeon would not only be going through their lens replacement surgery, but also document it like you did. And, it's got hundreds of thousands of views because all around the world, people were trying to figure out, hey, how do we make this lens work? What should we expect? And, oh, wow, well, here's a very well-known surgeon who had it on his own eye and is taking you through it. And similarly, when, new lenses come out, the new lens euphoria comes out, and I'm like, I wonder how this compares to this. I bet you, Shannon, Shannon Wong has looked at that, and I literally like type it into YouTube, and yep, there he is comparing, Panoptics to whatever, and so you pick the right content, you pick what we're all thinking about and talking about, and you do it in such a good way. I think that's what drives us, at least, and patients probably feel the same way. They're wondering which lens I should get.
Yeah, and so to that end, what is your process like when you have a cataract consult? This may be for a little bit more like seasoned ophthalmologists, but I'm curious myself, so I'll ask the question. All the time when we get cataract consults, we're trying to figure out how do we push education to them before they come in? How do we educate them so that they know what the difference is potentially between lenses, even the difference between near and intermediate and distance vision? Are you sending them links? Are you sending them surveys? And then how does that process translate when they're coming into the office? What's your education process in counseling patients for surgery?
For a patient who's never been to our office?
Yeah, a new patient's coming in for a cataract consult, for example.
Well, I've made some videos, and our staff will usually email the patient and send them a link to certain videos. And then internally, we go through a lot of the similar discussions. Hey, this is an eye, this is the cornea, this is the lens, this is how the eye focuses a picture, and this is how our lenses change over our lifetime. Well, I thought, well, why do we have to keep saying that? Why don't I just create a video and present it to the patient, make it clear, concise, simple. For our surgical center, they all get an informative video that tells them what to expect before surgery, what to expect after surgery, what's normal. So they all know that after cataract surgery, it's normal to be a little blurry, to see a little shadow out to the side, and their eye may be a little red, and their vision will be blurry the first day or two, and then it gets better. So I'm answering all the questions to actually make our practice more efficient and save us time. Yeah, I mean, in the old days, we were told, hey, you've got to find the patient and then mail them all this stuff. I never mailed people stuff, but we use email and text messaging to give them information so they're more informed walking in. And then we also lead them to our website, which has video content on it. We tell them, go to this page, go to that page. So the more informed a patient is before they come in, the easier it is for them to make a decision once they're there. It's almost like if you want to buy another iPhone 15, you want to know what's the difference between a iPhone 15, iPhone 14, iPhone 12, iPhone 12 Pro, etc. So you just want a chart that makes it easy so you can make a purchasing decision. Well, in the eye care world, to make a surgical decision, it's basically the same thing. So present that information such that when they come to the office, this is like practice business stuff, that they can make a decision on the spot, that they don't have to go, let me go home and think about it and I'll call you back. They're in, out, done.
And I want to ask a personal question regarding family business, because I'm in a family business, you're in a family business, and sometimes family business is tough business, So, a lot of times people say, oh, you're so lucky that you had family involved. You kind of knew the secret password of ophthalmology early on, and yes, there is a lot of benefit. But what I found, at least when I was starting out in my practice, is it was actually more difficult because I felt the need to prove myself that much more. I wanted to exceed everything that my dad and my uncles had done, because I didn't want to feel that I'm just entitled to all this. I wanted to kind of prove it. I wanted to show it, and that can be a weight. It can be a bit of a burden, to do that. Did you kind of struggle with that, finding your spot, and how is it working with family?
I think that's to your credit. Because I think I told you this saying. There's a saying I tell my son, who's in college, but I tell him, I said, there's a saying that good times make weak men make hard times make strong men. So it's very easy to be the beneficiary of, I guess, the woke term is privilege, and to kind of coast. But when I joined the practice, I think there was the perception of, oh, there he is, he's born with a silver spoon in his mouth. But we don't get to where we are without a lot of hard work and a lot of discipline. So, I mean, it's everybody's wired differently, but I was very driven. I'm still very driven. So I just, you have to fight through that and prove yourself. But you have to prove yourself every day. So it's like there's a saying, the only easy day was yesterday. Every day you're in the practice, you're being scrutinized as a leader. You're being scrutinized as a doctor. So you really have to prove yourself every single day. Just because you were great yesterday doesn't mean you're great today or tomorrow.
Yeah, and sometimes scrutinized unfairly, and you have to be cognizant of that as well. And you can't complain about it because nobody wants to listen to us complain. That's why we're in the position we are. And so having to kind of overcome that, I think, is important. You mentioned your sons. I have 3 sons. You have 3 sons. Talk about that piece. Have you? I'm just now getting to the point. My boys are 8, 4, and 3. I'm trying to learn how to be a better dad and a better father. I got to say, sometimes the dad stuff doesn't come natural to me. The reading to them when they go to bed and driving them to school. I'm like, man, I kind of just wish I was, hanging out, having a glass of wine with my wife right now, but I'm having to put the kids to bed. But after I do it, I'm like, that was a good thing to do. I'm glad I did that. I'm trying to learn how to do that. Have you kind of gone through that because you've been so busy, your whole life? How did you raise 3 young men?
I'm blessed with like a great wife. So
good answer.
When our kids were very, very young, I was there. I was present, but my wife was full time with them. And as they get older, I make it a point. I was intentional in being a present parent, and kids are very endearing up until probably the age of 12 to 13, and they want you to be around. And then for those of you who this is in your future, and Gary probably knows, after the age of 13, they kind of want their independence. And by the time they're about 16, and especially if they have a car, they don't know who you are. And so they go through stages, and it's just part of the normal thing. But you do your best in those foundational years to be the best role model you can, and you hope it sticks.
And then I'm sure, as a father, I think about, things my dad told me, and I'm sure you probably went through that same thing. Did your dad give you any good advice growing up that you've been able to pass on to your kids, or something that stuck, something that resonates with you?
Pay your taxes, tip your bartenders.
Yeah, my dad's very much into business. He wants to pay as little tax as legally possible. So run your businesses that way. No, I mean, just he set an example. He set a good example by just working hard and taking good care of the business and providing for his family.
And Shannon, I want you to talk about your new center because I did the drone flyby thing. So he made this amazing video, drone footage going through your new center, which is beautiful. Maybe just kind of, these last few minutes that we have, just kind of talk a little bit about, building that new center, the new ASC, and maybe what the future is. So you said you're 55. What's the next 10, 15 years look like for Austin I?
Yeah. So the drone footage, there's a TV series on HBO called Hard Knocks, and it's about football. And a few years ago, they had a season about the Dallas Cowboys. So the introduction to that season was a drone fly through the Dallas Cowboys practice facility. And I go, oh my God, that's awesome. And then around the same time, there was this very viral bowling alley drone video. And then about a year or two ago, there was another viral video flying around the Chicago Cubs Wrigley Field. And I remember those. And so it was New Year's Day this year. I was sitting at home, nothing to do, and I was going, who did this stuff? And I found the studio, and I emailed them. I said, can you come down and do our building? And he said, sure. And so I hired the people who I thought were the best, and they did a great job. So why did we feature that building? Well, I did want to build the best, what I considered the best eye care facility in Austin. And so we invested in real estate in a nice part of Austin, and we want to cater to the people who want to do elective surgery. And so we want to build from that, and we're renovating our other offices, and that takes a lot of hard work. The only people who can do that in ophthalmology are probably people who do refractive surgery. And for the next 10, 15 years, it's just to grow the business and work with the local ophthalmology residency program that and teach medical students here at UT Austin, and then we'll see what the future holds.
You know, really, in my experience, the best way to inspire, hope and wisdom in the next generation is to talk to people who've blazed the trail ahead of us, people who've made difficult choices and decisions in order to live an extraordinary life and have an extraordinary practice. And from Gary and I, we really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Blake.